Democrat allies in the Congress was a war on American energy.
The head of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, is now targeting the U.S. Agency for International Development in his effort to reshape the federal bureaucracy. USAID is an agency that delivers humanitarian aid around the world, something that supporters argue is critical for ensuring American leadership around the world. Iowa Republican Senator Joni Ernst gave credit to Musk's efforts, describing the agency as wasteful spending.
Elon Musk is spearheading the Department of Government Efficiency, and if it means ferreting out waste and fraud on behalf of Americans, then I think he is doing a great job.
The task is slow and solemn on the Potomac River, but progress is reported as the wreckage of a passenger plane is brought to the surface.
Monday, fuselage and wing sections were brought up by huge cranes, revealing more victims' remains. When the salvage operation continues, Army Corps of Engineers Colonel Francis Paris said the goal,
based on the reduced timeline and the environmental conditions, is the cockpit, and we equally think we're going to be successful.
The main priority remains the recovery of all 67 people that died on the plane and the military helicopter in order to bring closure to their families. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
One of the world's largest solar power plants appears headed for closure. Chris Woodward has more.
The Ivanpah Solar Power Plant broke ground in 2010 and began operating a few years later near the California-Nevada border. It made headlines for various reasons, not to mention that $1.6 billion federal loan guarantee from the Department of Energy. Still, President Obama said it was worth it.
It's going to put about 1,000 people to work, building a state-of-the-art facility.
Today, all that appears to be going away, and Larry Behrens of Power the Future is not surprised.
We're going to find the same thing all over the country years and years from now. These things do not work without massive taxpayer subsidization. And so if they were in the free market, they would have gone out of business a long time ago. But since they were propped up by taxpayers, well, they were on life support a little bit longer. And lo and behold, now that they failed, it's the taxpayers that are going to be holding the bag.
I'm Chris Woodward.
And finally, hiring is still holding firm, but it has cooled from a year ago.
The Labor Department's Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey found job openings declined to 7.6 million on the last day of December. Compared with a year earlier, job openings are down 1.3 million, though economists believe the labor market remains healthy. The JOLTS report also found hires at 5.5 million and total separations at 5.3 million. Ginny Cosola, Fox News.
More news available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Streaming.afa.net has now become AFA Stream, and you can find it at stream.afa.net. You see, we removed the letters ing. Our experts have determined that eliminating those 3 keystrokes, multiplied over hundreds of thousands of AFA Stream visits, could reduce the national debt and maybe increase the gross domestic product. AFA Stream, formerly streaming.afa.net. Improvements to the economy are purely theoretical. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. And I'm your host, Tim Wildman, one of your hosts here, and Wesley Wildman's in studio with me. Good morning, Wesley.
Hey, good morning.
Chris Woodward. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
And Ray Pritchard. How you doing, Ray?
Hey, I'm doing great, Tim. How are you this fine morning?
Everything's well. I haven't been slapped with a tariff, and and the weather's great.
So what is the weather report from Tupelo this morning?
Here in Tupelo, MS today, it's going to be 71, I think.
God bless. 71, a little overcast at times. The sun pops out here and there.
What about you, Ray? What about Kansas City?
Oh, wow. It's cloudy and 31 and just cold.
31?
I'm against this. I'm against this.
Wow. You wouldn't think there'd be. You wouldn't think we're 8, 9 hours away from each other. driving time, right?
Right.
Kansas City to Tupelo, you wouldn't think it'd be 40 degrees difference. So.
I was wrong. It's actually 29 degrees. I just checked. It's dropping as we speak. Something has gone wrong.
Anyway, we're having Florida weather here. It's 71 degrees here in Tupelo today. 74 Wednesday, 76 Thursday, 67 Friday, 81 Saturday.
It's good golfing weather, Tim.
You know it. I don't think the Lord would have me, sit inside a building.
No.
You
can't wait. You can't waste this kind of weather in February.
I don't feel that calling to stay inside a building when it's 71 degrees and nice outside. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody, wherever you may be listening and however your weather may be where you live. We just remember springtime is on the way, right? Springtime is on the way. When old man winter gets tired, springtime is on the way. All right. So much to talk about today in the news. Robert Gagnon will be with us a little bit later on, as Sandy Rios will be with us. For you Sandy Rios fans, she's going to be on with us in just a few minutes here on today's issues. What's your first story, Chris?
Well, I want to bring people's attention to our website, afn.net, where we have posted breaking news involving Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Mr. Kennedy today cleared his first hurdle to become the nation's top health official.
How many hurdles does he have?
He has one more after this
one.
He cleared a hurdle today when the Senate Finance Committee voted to advance his nomination for a floor vote. Republicans voted together to advance his nomination while Democrats were all opposed. One of the Republicans that everybody was watching was Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who is also a physician and sits on the Finance Committee, but even he himself voted to advance Kennedy's confirmation. This does not mean that Kennedy is now head of the Health and Human Services Department, but he is one step closer. And as we talked about here, he faces the big hurdle, which is the full Senate floor vote. It could get down to a situation where it's a tie, and then Vice President J.D. Vance comes in and makes him, secretary, much like he did Pete Hegseth, but we shall see.
And when's that?
We don't know. TBD.
Okay. Gotcha.
RFK is TBD.
So we don't know when the full vote is?
We don't know yet.
But he's been advanced out of the.
Is this one of those things where they're delaying this? Do they have the right to delay this, or is this something that this is just normal procedure?
Normal procedure.
Okay.
It could be later this week, probably by week's end, I would guess. Now we still are waiting on that Pam Bondi, resolution in terms of that big vote on her and some others, but this one was really one everybody was watching after a very contentious and much talked about confirmation hearing or hearings involving RFK, and we played those clips last week on the show.
Ray, did you get to hear any of his hearings?
I sure did. And look, does he hold some controversial views? Sure he does. But he's the man Donald Trump wants. And, Tim, when I think it's all said and done, I think he's going to be confirmed, probably on a party line vote inside the Senate.
I agree with you. If he can get the vote of Cassidy in Louisiana, which he did to advance him out of committee, right? RFK Jr. we're talking about,
correct,
folks. RFK Jr. Had his hearing before a 2-day hearing, I think it was, before the United States Senate last week. And now he's been voted out of committee. You have to get voted out of committee. If you don't get voted out of committee, you can't have a full vote on the floor for the Senate. So he's been voted out of committee now, and Cassidy from Louisiana was one of the ones who voted to advance him out of committee, which that was a question mark.
Right.
Some of the people in the the medical field, they think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a quack. I'm just going to tell you.
A thorn in their flesh, too.
Do what now?
A thorn in their flesh, too.
Yeah, yes, both. A thorn in their flesh, but they just don't feel like that he holds scientific views of some major issues in the medical community. I'm just telling you, that's how they view it.
Yeah.
And so that's the reason that there was a question about Cassidy, because he is a medical doctor, as you said, Chris, but he says he's going to advance it forward. I agree with you, Ray. I think he'll be promoted. Mm-hmm. Maybe a party line vote. That's 53-47 I just don't think there are many Republicans willing to buck
Go on the record of going against
President Trump right now and
over
his desire.
Yeah.
It is possible that if the full Senate were to vote no on him, and J.D. Vance can't save him, that President Trump could recess appoint him at a time in which the Senate would go on break for, let's say, Easter or something later this year. He could put him in that position, but that would only be temporary through this particular Congress. He would have to put him back in there or get somebody else in there.
Okay, that's
come
good
the
to know.
next.
I think he'll be passed.
Yep.
Maybe barely, like Ray says, but I think he'll be the Health and Human Services Director. Next story, Chris.
Well, I do want to also point out a story on our website. This one is about tariffs. I know we talked a lot about tariffs yesterday. It's a very
What is that again?
Tariffs or taxes that
can't.
we put on other people's stuff.
I'm kidding.
Ray, I don't know about you. I can't get enough tariff talk.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's what puts me to sleep at night.
Yes.
So much of it, right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
We need some more tariff talk in this country, and I'm glad President Trump's bringing that to our attention. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, yeah, the update here is now, Mexico said, hey, we'll put some troops on the border if you pause the tariffs. Canada came around late yesterday and said, we'll help secure the northern border to curb illegal immigration into your country. China is the other one we're still watching for, and I don't think China is going to do as quick an announcement as Mexico or Canada, if it even decides to do something similar. But China has now countered our tariffs with their own tariffs. So stuff that we're sending over there.
tariffed China too?
Yes.
I missed that one.
Yes, we're slapping tariffs on their products.
I mean, how much we slapping on them, Chris?
Oh, like 25-30%.
Good
And
grief.
that's in an effort.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. That's in an
Serious,
effort
Clark?
to. I am, and don't call me Shirley. But we slap tariffs on their stuff. They're slapping it on our stuff now, so we're in a tariff war with China. The reason we have tariffs on their stuff is to prevent things like fentanyl making it over here and being put in drugs that people die of.
All right, just to be clear,
AFA doesn't have a position on tariffs.
No, we don't. But I mean, let's just talk about this for just a moment. President Trump threatened tariffs on Mexico and China, and he said you need to do A, B, and C in order for.
You mean Canada too?
What did I say?
I said China.
Oh yes, what I meant was Canada and Mexico.
Yes.
I just put China aside
That's
for
right.
just a
That's
moment.
right.
Okay, Canada and Mexico, our neighbors to the south and to the north, and he said, in order to me not to do this, Trump said, you're going to need to do your part to secure the border between Mexico and the U.S. And the Mexican president said, okay, I'll do it. I'll send 10,000 troops to the border to help control illegal immigration. This is going to shut it off. This is going to the problem on the border between Mexico and America and the U.S. is over for all practical purposes because the U.S. is
we did our job.
The U.S. is already sending our military down there.
Yeah,
Texas is down there already.
Right.
And
Tom Homan.
Huh?
Tom Homan's down there too.
Tom Homan. Between that and getting these criminals off the streets, these who are illegals, and threatening to send them to Guantanamo Bay or now to send them to El Salvador to that prison down there, which you don't want to go to. I looked at that. And so you got that situation. So this purpose, I'm getting to a point here.
Yeah.
The purpose of the tariff threat with Mexico has worked.
Yep.
All right. So now it's a 1 month pause, but still I think it's going to be extended because we're going to work out a deal.
That's right.
And Trump loves that word, right? Deal.
Yeah, deal.
With Mexico. Now, with respect to Canada, the Trudeau, of course, he's going to be out next month.
Mm-hmm.
But he said boycott. I don't know if he said it, but Canadians weren't happy with what Trump did as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they booed our national anthem the other day. They didn't like it, but now there's been a pause on that tariff because Canada has come back and said we'll do A, B, and C.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. They did.
So go
okay,
ahead.
but you were getting to a point though. China.
China's a different animal. Okay. You get into a trade war with China, it's going to be some pain in our country.
Yes.
I don't think we don't have. This is me talking.
Well, Trump said there would be short pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for a long
It's
for a
gonna be
big
tall
for,
pain
for a
too.
bigger goal.
It's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
I meant short as in length.
Oh, my bad.
Short
Okay.
as in length as a
Huh?
result of a
Right.
longer goal.
I'm just going to say, I'm about to run out of my expertise on tariffs.
I'll save you.
My knowledge, which is
I'll save you. Go ahead.
okay. You're gonna save me? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
The guy
I'm
that
just,
asked what a
I'm just
tariff-
saying. I'm just saying. You can have tariff threats with Mexico and Canada and work out
Right.
something because
Right.
Ray, because you're in a much better bargaining position.
We
Okay.
cannot get into a trade war with China.
No.
That will not end well. Either
No,
way.
my question to people would be: you want tennis shoes or not?
Yeah.
Right.
Because we get into trade war with China, you're not getting any more tennis shoes in the U.S.
You like your iPhone, right? You know?
Yes.
You like your computers? Yeah.
Listen, America and China are joined at the hip.
Yeah. Yeah, we are.
Whether we like it or not,
We mostly don't like it, but
well, China makes stuff and we buy it.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's been like that for 30 years now, and I don't see that changing. Go ahead,
No.
Ray.
Well, look, Mexico had to back down, had to adjust. Canada had to adjust because most of their foreign trade is with the U.S. They didn't. Trudeau didn't have any cards to play. Neither does Mexico. China's a whole different animal. They control. We're getting as much from them as they are from us. So it's not. I don't think we should expect that President Xi over in China is going to roll over quickly. There's going to have to be some hard negotiations here.
I missed that. So, what kind of tariff did Trump issue on China?
Chris was saying between 25 and 30%. We can get some.
I'm going to double check the figure.
But it was over the fentanyl coming across into our country.
Yeah, because
but how would you control? I don't understand how you
mean
gauge
China
that.
ships it to Mexico and Mexico. Talking about fentanyl?
Fentanyl, yes.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Chris?
Yeah, so they already faced a 10 or 25% tariff, and this move from Trump adds a 10% tariff to more than $400 billion worth of goods coming from China. That's clear as mud, but it's a stiff tax on Chinese-made goods.
Until when they quit sending?
A time to be determined.
Oh,
I'm just curious on how does the government gauge or quantify what that less fentanyl coming in, and then we lift it. I don't know how you gauge that.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work out. So you're saying 25%?
Pretty much, approximately.
On China? And China has said what?
That they are going to slap tariffs of their own in that amount on things from America that arrive in the U.S. A lot of people don't realize this.
Wait a minute. You just said America that arrive in the U.S.
Well, that arrive in China. I'm sorry. So China is now tariffing or taxing our stuff that we send over there. And we do send a ton of stuff over there. Meat.
Do we really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The soybeans, pork products, beef. There's a number of things agriculture-wise that we send over there.
China can make the most obscure things. You just go and get something at the store that...
Right.
That you
go to the Dollar General store.
Yeah.
And half of it says
made in China. You
right.
think who makes this stuff? You know,
the shirt you're wearing is probably made in China.
Yeah,
yeah. But I mean, they make. If you look at all your Christmas toys that you might buy for your kids, and you go, who makes this thing? And you go, look at the back of the box, made in China. So anyway. We will see how that. I'm sure President Trump and his team have made calculations on the Chinese. I'm just saying, we get in a trading war with China. There's going to be some complaining here before long by Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who they would blame, President Trump or China, but probably.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see what happens there. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. That's the name of this show. I'm Tim with Wesley and Chris and with Ray, and we thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Well, one of the big stories that happened as a result of Donald Trump winning the presidency was his promise to release or to pardon those incarcerated in jails for January 6th prosecutions, from a few years back. And he did that. President Trump did that. He pardoned them all in one fell swoop, and he was done with it. Nobody's followed this any better than Sandy Rios, our own Sandy Rios, in terms of the plight of the people in jail for January 6th. And Sandy joins us now. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Tim, and everybody.
Say good morning, Sandy.
Hey, good morning.
Good
I thought
morning,
she was talking
Sandy.
to those listening.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
What language you speaking there, Chris?
Not French.
That was good. He did a good job.
That was French?
No, I said,
said
not
not
French.
That's I know a little French from my high school.
Oui.
You don't remember that, do you?
A
Really?
couple, yeah. Oui, yeah. I know oui and.
Do you know a porte-moi la carte, s'il vous plaît?
Now I think the Bible says you need an interpreter right there.
Ray.
That's right.
That's
I
just
got the please.
Bring the menu.
Oh, bring the menu. Oh, now I like that. Now I know parlez-vous français.
Oh, I knew that one too.
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Yes,
fluent in French
and I know
also.
my name's Timothée.
that sounds like Jack.
That's French for Timothy. I'm not kidding.
Really?
Y'all think I'm
Oh,
kidding?
Timothy.
That's going to stick
yeah,
with
okay.
you. Now you're going to go back to
Timothée.
your office, and we're going to
Yeah.
exchange the name on the outside of the.
Anyway, I made a C in that class and moved on.
You passed.
Yeah, I made a class. All right, so Sandy, have all the January 6th folks who were in jail been released now?
No, not all of them. Julie Kelly just did one on Thomas Caldwell asking for a pardon for him. And also Jeremy Brown is still. Now, I don't know how many are still in. At the time, there was probably 6 or 7. As I recall, when he signed that executive order, that he did not include, and they were going to do further investigation. But, let me just give you an idea.
Now, they were
Tim.
pardons, not an executive order, were they? Or were they?
He pardoned them by executive order.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay,
Yeah, and he
great.
said that he wanted them out by midnight that night.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you how that played out if you're interested. It's we were driving back from D.C. from the inauguration, and I had my laptop on, and I'm so this has just happened, and of course this has been a real burden in my heart for since it happened 4 years ago. And so I ended up being on another program live, watching the D.C. jail for hours. And occasionally I would comment on it. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because I saw what they did. Tim, they were supposed to let these guys out at midnight. It was 10 degrees in D.C. on that day. And people had come, family members. There was like a sidewalk adjacent to a service road. So not a lot of traffic, and then a grassy area, and then you could see the prison. Now, you could see people, but you couldn't make their faces out. They made those people wait until the early hours of the morning, and meanwhile, they were releasing those prisoners around D.C. They would take them out in a car and drop them off somewhere in the District of Columbia without proper clothing, and the families would have to go find them. They did that drip, drip, drip all night. But finally, around 9 o'clock, several of them were free, and they came back to the jail across where the families were, and they sang, "God Bless America." And I'm telling you, Tim, it was the most moving thing of all. I just interviewed Chris Worrell yesterday. Chris was pardoned. He's finally out. He's the prisoner, you might recall, who had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right.
And he'd had it for like 14 years and been treating it. He was fine. A lot of people do very well with that. But they refused to give him any kind of treatment. He got no medicine for almost a year, nothing at all. And they treated them. I'm picking on this prison because I know the most about it, but I know a lot about others too. They would leave the light on in their cells all night long. The guards were Nation of Islam guards, and so they would not let them have any kind of religious services. I can tell you personally that I vested a lot of time trying to get pastors in Virginia to send someone to that jail to minister to those guys, and no one would do it. And I can tell you, no one. So they were isolated, and they kind of established a brotherhood. And there was a young man named Shane Jenkins that I interviewed from early days who took the lead. And he actually had a criminal record prior to this. And he started teaching these men scripture. They grew and they grew. Meanwhile, they're being tortured. There's bugs in their cell. There's feces. They don't clean anything. They were sectioned off in the jail in a certain section. They were put in solitary confinement for 22 or 24 days. I'm just trying to paint the picture.
Right.
So Chris Worrell was in that hellhole. And then they started moving them out, and they call it diesel something. As they would send them to prisons like you never knew where your loved one was going to be. So he couldn't really lock in and make friendships, and they'd get him up in the middle of the night and move him somewhere else and then somewhere else. Many of these guys have been in, 50, 60
Why were they
places.
treated like this, Sandy? I mean, even if you were to say, okay, they're guilty of trespassing or violating whatever law, it seems like, and you may go, well, duh, Tim, hadn't you been paying attention? Yes, I've been paying attention to what Sandy has done, her investigative reporting and interviewing and so forth. But why were they so mistreated why didn't they just put them in jail and treat them like normal prisoners?
I'll try to say,
Okay.
I'll try to make it easy. I think it's several factors. I think, first of all, you remember very well that the media all had, as soon as the 5 minutes after trouble broke out at the Capitol, they started saying insurrection. This was a planned accusation. The crowd was inspired to violence. I could go through a lot of situations. I'm not saying every person was perfect, but a lot of them fought back because they were attacked. There were not, all the police there on that day were not D.C. A lot of them were Washington, D.C. Policemen. They were from various areas, and some of them were there for terrible purposes, and they did terrible things to people. And so that's why a lot of these people fought the police, because they saw people like Roseanne Boylan. There was another woman, Victoria White, in the tunnel who was beaten 16 times by a male policeman. So they were responding. These are military men, a lot of policemen, business owners, and they went to help. It was a riot that broke out, but it was fomented by bad actions on the part of the Capitol Police and others. But that doesn't mean none of them were hurt, and none of them were killed, although that's been told. It's not true. So you put them in a prison where there are Nation of Islam guards who hate white men and certainly hate American patriots, and it's just a deadly combination.
Yeah.
That doesn't say anything about the judges and the prosecutors, which I have more on that if you want it.
Yeah, but Trump pardoned them all, right?
No, he did not. He
all right, hold on. We got to come back from the break.
Okay.
Well, okay, we'll come back from the break and get more from Sandy Rios after this break.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
In the book of Proverbs, we read these words: "A man's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor." His name was Thomas Jefferson. He was born at Shadwell, Virginia on April the 13th, 1743. He died on July the 4th, 1826. The date was a tribute to the man, and in between those two dates he tied together a life of service to his fellow man. You probably remember him as the author of the Declaration of Independence, and most of all he would have wanted you to remember him for that. He even wrote his own epitaph. He had a reason for doing so. Before his death, he gave his daughter Martha Randolph instructions to have these words inscribed on his headstone: "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia." You know, that's saying a lot about a man's life, any man's life. Jefferson could have put more on that headstone, you know. He could have added a long list of accomplishments. He could have stated that he had served the state of Virginia as its governor. Most of us, had we the honor of being governor, would have included it in our epitaph, but not Jefferson. Also, he could have stated that he was a member of Congress, for he was, but he didn't choose to put that on his headstone. Jefferson could have also reminded those who were to view his headstone of the fact that he was Minister to France and Secretary of State. He was that, you recall, under the administration of George Washington. And that would have been something worth recalling for most of us, but not for Jefferson. From that position, Jefferson moved up to the number 2 man of these United States. He served as Vice President under John Adams, but not even that was included on his headstone. Had he wished, Jefferson could have engraved on his headstone the fact that he was President of this country, not once, but twice. And that's an honor shared by very, very few men. But Jefferson did not consider even that fact worthy to be included in his most precious accomplishments. Most of us would agree that pride is often a vice that destroys us. We accomplish something, and we cannot wait for the world to learn of our deed and praise us for doing it. And many of us keep telling people years after our accomplishment of what we once did. Some people learn how to handle pride. Jefferson was such a man. He learned how, like all people who do so, through a great desire to be a servant. Why didn't Jefferson include all those other accomplishments on his headstone? Well, he told his daughter when she sought the reason. The things that are not on my inscription are the things the people did for me, he said. The things that are on it are things I did for the people. That's proper control of pride. Pray to God that we can all acquire it.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, just returned from the presidential inauguration of President Trump and Vice President Vance. And let me tell you something, folks. There's an excitement in the air among millions and millions and millions of Americans who are ready for some common sense changes to come to our country. Guess what? We're going to Washington, D.C. again for our Spiritual Heritage Tour in June and September. We're over halfway full. If you want to go with us to see our nation's capital from a distinctively Christian heritage viewpoint, then you need to contact us. You need to go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com. We're also going to Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to Boston in October. For information on any of these tours, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com.
For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. 2 Corinthians 5:1.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the program Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray. Sandy Rios is with us from Sandy Rios 24/7 podcast. Sandy, Ray, do you have a question for Sandy?
So, Sandy, I suppose what everybody really wants to know is about the confirmation hearings that are coming up for Robert F. Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard. Do you think they're going to be finally approved by the Senate or not?
You know, I do. I do. I have a reason for believing that. You probably saw that there is Twitter has become a force of nature, or X. And Elon Musk, just yesterday, I think it was, I've lost track a little bit, it could be the day before, posted something in regard to these confirmations. And he said, basically, any of you Republican senators who can't get on board with these nominees, X has this incredible, is an incredible repository for information about your connections to untoward entities. What we call compromising you. We know these things. And if you don't get on board, your corruption is going to be exposed. We are going to expose your corruption. And quickly, several of them changed their minds. And Cameron, even Susan Cotton, I'm not saying Susan's corrupt. I have no idea who he's talking about. I did know one of them. You asked me, I wasn't prepared to talk about this, but there is one that he called out, and the guy switched his vote immediately. And it had to do with Kennedy. So a lot of these guys are up to their ears in taking funds from drug companies, and even worse. I'm telling you, they are involved in worse enterprises. If you knew, and I think we might know. But now this is expanded, and others are saying the same thing and are saying, you're coming up for election and this, and we're going to expose you, and you'll never be elected again. Yeah, I do. I think they're going to get confirmed. Now, that's, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Something else could happen, but I think they're going to be. Right or wrong, I think they're going to be.
All right, so, folks, if you want to hear Sandy's 3 times a week podcast with the kind of information she's been sharing with us this morning, go to our website. Go to our website, afr.net, afr.net, and click on our podcast, and you'll see Sandy's banner there for Sandy Rios 24/7. And what's your next podcast going to be on, Sandy?
Well, I started our conversation mentioning Chris Worrell. I'm doing 2 shows. John Eastman was with me yesterday talking about birthright citizenship. He's one of the nation's leading experts on that. And Chris joined me. Chris got out from the jail just when the day Trump released them. And what I didn't finish saying was that Chris started out with this non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He got no medicine. They treated him with such cruelty. And so now he has stage 3 cancer. He's lost his business. He was in the automotive industry and very successful. He lost that. No one will hire him. He's destitute, can't pay for medicine. This is what they've done to these people. He's lost touch with his children. He's got a son he's estranged from because their names have been ruined, and all completely unfairly. So Chris is going to tell his story, and also he is really intent on exposing the horrible treatment inside the prison system. And so that's kind of a crusade for him. So we'll have a good discussion on that.
Okay. So go to Sandy Rios 24/7. Again, go to our website, afr.net, click on the podcast, and you'll see Sandy's banner for her show. 3 times a week, Sandy releases a podcast with great information, excellent sources and interviews and interesting topics. Sandy Rios 24/7. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks. Nice to talk to you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's Sandy Rios joining us. Listen, her podcast gets enormous downloads. So she's very well loved by our listeners.
And that's because she gets down to the very fine details of everything that she covers. So she's not, whereas some of the programs are more broad and general, in this case, she's been following January 6th, along with other things, but she's been covering it very well, having people that have firsthand testimonies and firsthand information on that issue as interviews. So that's the reason.
Yeah. You're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray, and thank you for listening. What's your next story, Chris?
Well, the Trump administration, on the advice of people including Elon Musk, is looking to put an end to wasteful overseas spending. This is USAID or USAID. A lot of coverage went towards yesterday's announcements and findings and things shared by people, including White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She joined reporters on the lawn of the White House to share a few things, just a few things that we are wasting money on overseas at our expense, guys. Clip 3.
And here's the reason why Elon Musk and others have been taking a look. Because if you look at the waste and abuse that has run through USAID over the past several years, these are some of the insane priorities that organization has been spending money on. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for a production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru, I don't know about you, but as an American taxpayer, I don't want my dollars going towards this, and I know the American people don't either, and that's exactly what Elon Musk has been tasked by President Trump to do, to get the fraud, waste, and abuse out of our federal government. Thank you, guys.
It's hard to understand. I wish you would clarify what she's saying because I didn't understand.
She's going to circle back.
She was circling. She was pointing to everyone. Oh, wait. No, she was very clear.
Okay.
With great details.
Yes, that is the new press secretary for President Trump. Her name again is
Caroline Leavitt.
Okay. And Ray, what she's talking about there, there is a federal funded agency called, what's it called, Chris?
The Department of Government Agency, and then there's USAID.
Okay, I'm talking about the USAID. Mm-hmm. All right, so just to break it down so people know what's going on here, Elon Musk has been given the task by, it's not an official capacity, okay? He's not confirmed by the Senate or anything like that. He's just he's working for the president. He's working for,
That's right.
to find waste and in the federal government.
Right.
And so he has pointed out, this is a biggie for me.
It is for me
if
too.
You read about it.
Yeah.
This U.S. aid gets million, I don't know how much money. They get, maybe get $1 billion, I don't know. They get all this U.S. tax dollar money. And under Biden and Harris, they were distributing this money, our tax dollar money, to fund all this transgendered garbage all over the world.
That's just the first of their discovery. We're going to find more, but this is the one that's most controversial.
A complete and total waste of money. Just a waste of our tax dollars. And Elon Musk is finding a lot of this. And she there, Ray, was citing a few examples of the most egregious violations of public trust, you could say.
Well, look, Wesley, you're exactly right. We're going to see a whole lot more as they're digging down into the swamp that is USAID. And let's be clear. It's one thing to say we're going to give money to dig wells in Sierra Leone. It's one thing to say we're going to give money to provide textbooks for elementary school kids in Kyrgyzstan. It's one thing to say we're going to pave a road to help the farmers in some part of Africa get their food to the market, right? That's one thing. But to be things like what? Financing a transgender opera, right?
That's what they were doing
in another country.
In another country, right?
And what happens is, with tax dollars and the federal government, I've often used this expression. It's everyone's money and it's no one's money. Okay, by that I mean there's very little accountability
until now
on where our U.S. taxpayers' dollars are going, especially around the world and what they're doing.
Right.
Because the federal government is such a behemoth, it's hard to, get your head around how many programs there are, how many employees there are, and what Trump is doing on the recommendation of Musk now. He's like saying, let's shut down departments. Right? I mean, they're saying shut down this U.S. aid that we just been talking about here.
Yeah.
Musk said it's irredeemable. You can't fix it. You just need to shut it down. They're gonna. I don't know what they're about to do, Ray, with the Wesley and Chris and guys, but the Department of Education, which is a golden calf of the political left in this country, they're Trump and Elon Musk are going to gut that. They're going to try to gut that, the U.S. Department of Education, which I just say,
yes.
I just clap my hands because we don't need a U.S. federal education department.
There was a time when we didn't.
We don't need that.
It's not that old.
And it did, and it worked well without it.
Right.
We don't need that.
We had one before 1970.
If you want to do anything with that money that goes to the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, D.C., you can distribute it to the states.
For the states, also for school choice. And also to help with school choice, too.
And states are going to make sure kids know how to read and write and put things together because you can't lure in industries.
That's right.
If your workforce is a bunch of nincompoops.
Go ahead, Ray.
Well, look, the U.S. aid probably does need to be shut down. It'll be something. Can we say this? It'll be something of a miracle if they can actually shut an agency like that all the way down. But it just occurred to me sitting here thinking that Mr. Trump has made more progress toward his goal of draining the swamp in the first 2 weeks of this administration than he did in the whole first year of his first term, because there was so much other stuff going on. I applaud Elon Musk. I'm glad he's using the bully pulpit of X, Twitter, to bring some of these things to light.
I know there's some concern about Elon Musk and the role he was going to play with President Trump, but I got to tell you,
at this point, though,
looking at it from right now, I just say he's been a huge asset for President Trump, and he's working well with the president on citing this government waste and fraud and the deep state
and stopping it
and defunding it and everything he's citing. Elon Musk.
The liberals hate him. They hate him, Tim, because they can't control him.
Yes,
that's right.
And I will say this for Elon Musk, too. He didn't have to do this, okay, in the sense that he was the world's wealthiest man. He had great businesses that he was running, from SpaceLink to Tesla to all this other stuff that Elon Musk is involved in. So he's got his hands full with his businesses. But you know what? I don't think he's on a ego trip. He didn't need this because now people who used to be friendly to him are attacking him.
Right.
Okay. I'm talking about
as opposed to trying to meet with him and understand.
Yeah. Because he's so closely aligned with President Trump.
Right.
But Elon Musk, I'm talking about, saw the threat that was secular progressivism as represented by Vice President Harris, and what she would do to our country had she been elected was going to be so radical, even far beyond Biden, that our country would not even look like America anymore in terms of our in many, many ways. And so,
he is motivated by the authenticity of genuine free speech.
He believes in he believes in America, free speech, free enterprise,
capitalism.
Capitalism.
He's obviously opposed to DEI, so merit-based,
all those things. Elon Musk embraced Americanism, traditional Americanism is what I'm going to say. So good for him, and I for one am glad to see Elon Musk working so closely with President Trump. I'm glad President Trump, saw in Elon Musk an asset.
And it's going to be hard for the media to have a comeback to that type of comment by our press secretary.
Oh yeah,
when she has a detailed list of where the money's going.
She's dynamite. So. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. That's the name of the show. Today's Issues. I'm Tim with Wesley, Chris, and Ray. Thank you for listening to American Family Radio. We go now to our guest, Robert Gagnon. Robert's on with us once every couple of weeks or so. He's visiting scholar at Wesley Biblical Seminary and a columnist for the American Spectator. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
Hey, you write, I said you're a columnist for the American Spectator. You write for multiple sites, don't you?
Where I put my material?
Yeah.
Well, mostly now just on Facebook and Twitter. I need to revamp my Facebook, my internet page, but that'll be coming in the future.
I can help you with that.
Oh, that would be great.
You don't want that, Robert.
Yeah, I'm just a guru there with the website, internet stuff there. I just see your article from the Spectator. That's why I said that.
Yes, American Spectator, and I'll be coming out with another article later on today in the American Spectator about developments that have taken place with regard to one of these recent EOs, executive orders. Particularly protecting children.
Hey, first of all, talk about this bishop at this Episcopal church, the Washington National Cathedral, And I know this has been a few days, but the way she just lectured President Trump and also Vice President Vance, it was totally inappropriate. But go ahead and talk about who is this woman?
She's the Episcopal Bishop of the Washington, D.C. area. And she just basically, in the early church, she would have simply been regarded as an arch heretic. And effectively what the risen Christ calls in the book of Revelation, chapter 2, a Jezebel, promoting idolatry, promoting sexual immorality, because that's really what she devoted her time to chastising Trump on. Of course, ironically, the larger sermon was about inculcating unity in the country, but then she used it to attack Trump and Trump supporters. So not much unity going on there. And her key concern was berating him about transgender children. He should show them mercy, and also about children of illegal immigrants. But she really, although it's okay to speak truth to power, that's what prophets did in the Old Testament. In this case, she wasn't operating with truth, but with heresy and misinformation.
Yeah, she Wesley, you said when she started saying that something to the effect that to Trump and to Vance,
children were in fear of their life. Transgender children were in fear of their life
because of you.
Because of the Trump or his policy
You
or
said
his team.
you said Vice President Vance had his neck snapped around.
Yeah,
you laughed at his body language, right?
Yeah, there was an image, a still image of his face, his facial reaction, which didn't do it justice to his actual the video footage of his actual reaction, which I recommend we all go look it up. Just type in, I guess, J.D. Vance's reaction to leftist bishop,
right?
And you'll find the video. But it was hilarious because it was.
Wow, what did he do?
He leaned up. And remember, this is supposed to be, I guess, I don't know if
it's a church service.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
at
sacred
the National
moment,
Cathedral in Washington D.C. I've been there many times. It's considered the national church, so a lot of events like this are taking place. You got to picture this.
Professional event.
You got to picture this. President Trump, Vice President Vance are sitting there. This is the day after the inauguration, and with their families, and they're listening to this woman preach a little sermonette, in which she had basically spending her time chastising them and telling them that they are a threat to transgender children.
The life of and then he leans up. He leans up.
Who does? Vance?
Vance visually leans up and turns his head and looks to his wife like, "Are you hearing this?"
Yeah.
And he's on the front row. And, of course, herself, being the lady that she was, she just, head forwards, just – and you can almost sense many people in the room going, we're just trying to get through this. We got 10 minutes left. Just put on a good face and we're going to move on. But JD had the visual first reaction that myself – and your everyday Christian would have by leaning up going like, is this serious?
Right, is anybody else hearing this?
And then what was funny was he turns to his right going like, is anybody not reacting like I am? I wish there was more people reacting like that to him, but it was funny. But hey, I've got a question for Dr. Gagnon here. So my question would be, and I guess I've pondered this for the last 5 or 10 years, and that's it. I don't understand why people hijack and hide behind the religion of Christianity to advance their agenda, as opposed to just being a pagan progressivism. Like, why does she feel the need, or how have we gotten in America where she's disguised as a
Christian
leader, for lack of a better word?
This woman we're talking about?
Yeah, woman. But why does she feel? Why would she not just go up there, take the outfit off, don't take the Bible up there, and just start being progressive? Why is that?
Right, because she would have no authority and nobody would listen to her.
Gotcha.
She's trying to take the mantle of Jesus' authority and place it on herself, when in fact she's doing the exact opposite of what Jesus would recommend. You know that in 2021, I discovered that she issued a public apology because at the National Cathedral, under her watch, she didn't realize they were inviting Max Lucado to speak. And there was an LGBTQ protest because 17 years earlier, Max had written a little piece rejecting homosexual practice as sin. I don't even know if he still held that view when he was invited in 2021. But she publicly apologized and effectively said nobody who does not support LGBTQ stuff is ever going to preach here. Now, how is this building unity? Effectively, what she's saying is that the Lord Jesus himself and the apostle to the Gentiles, Paul, would not have been allowed to preach in her church if they lived during this time.
That's
It's
it.
absolutely extraordinary. This is why she is an arch heretic, a Jezebel, and therefore has no authority in what she says.
Well, I wish, Robert, next time you come on, you're going to have to be more forthright, okay?
I know. Subtlety is...
well, we have to pull it out of you. We have to sort of figure out what you're thinking, and it's not good radio, I think.
I'll be working on that.
Okay.
Make boldness great again.
You know what? This is why the Episcopal Church is dying.
Yeah.
All right? Is because of people like this lady. She's the Episcopal bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, D.C., Mary Ann Budde, Budde. And listen, the Episcopal Church had a heyday in America, and they were Orthodox, and they had a belief system which was consistent with Christianity and the Bible. There was a time, and many of our founding fathers were members of the Episcopal Church. So it had a history, and a rich history. But the last 30, 40 years, these mainline denominations, such as the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church USA,
now the
United Methodist Church, which is split up, the Lutherans, which have split up because of this.
United Church of Christ.
Yes, those churches are dying. Why are they dying? Because they don't believe anything.
Yeah, essentially what they've reduced Jesus is to an ideological cipher. This is what their ideology is, and they simply create a phantom Jesus who believes what they believe without actually paying attention to the biblical text.
Robert,
Robert,
tell us where do people go to read this and this column you've written?
They can go to the American Spectator site. Leftist bishop gets her Bible wrong. And then they can also look at another article about Trump issuing the executive order banning chemical and surgical mutilation.
We can have you on about that again later. But thank you, Robert. Appreciate your work, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate the work of American Family Association.
Okay. That's Robert Gagnon, Gagnon. He is also a visiting scholar at Wesley Biblical Seminary. We're going to take a short time out. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Dr. Travis was a man that was full of life.
Bert Harper of Exploring the Word.
He loved the Word of God, and it came across in the classroom. Dr. Travis put in my heart a desire to know God through His Word. And that's what we're trying to do on Exploring the Word.
Exploring the Word, weekday afternoons at 3 Central on American Family Radio. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The U.S. military joined the Philippines in a joint patrol and exercise over a contested area of the South China Sea. Jessica Rosenthal has more.
2 U.S. Air Force B-1 bomber aircraft and 3 Philippine Air Force F-A-50 fighter jets joined up in a patrol over Scarborough Shoal, an area off the coast of the Philippines that China insists it controls. And since 2012, the Chinese have had a Coast Guard presence there, along with their own fishing boats. A spokeswoman with the Philippine Air Force said this patrol was to practice intercepting hostile aircraft, but the Philippine Navy also said they've been monitoring 3 Chinese vessels within the Philippines maritime zones. Last August, 2 Chinese Air Force aircraft fired flares in the path of a Philippine Air Force plane over the Scarborough Shoal.
President Trump is preparing to speak with the Chinese president about the ongoing tariff dispute. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the president will be standing up for American interests.
Fentanyl is the leading cause of death amongst young people in this country aged 18 to 34. And it is the president's utmost responsibility to protect American lives. That's why he implemented the 10% tariff on China.
The Senate Finance Committee has pushed through President Trump's nominee to head the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to a full chamber vote. Chad Pergrin reports from Capitol Hill.
Just before the vote started, we got a statement from Bill Cassidy, the Republican senator from Louisiana who chairs the Senate Health Committee. That's not the committee that has the main jurisdiction over this nomination. This was the Senate Finance Committee, which had to vote to get the nomination out and send it to the floor. That vote was a party line vote, 14-13. This is what Bill Cassidy said. I've had very intense conversations with Bobby and the White House over the weekend and even this morning. He thanks Vice President J.D. Vance specifically for what he terms his honest counsel. He says, with the serious commitments I've received from the administration and the opportunity to make progress on the issues we agree on, like healthy foods and a pro-American agenda, I will vote yes.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet with President Trump at the White House later today. Alexandria Hoff has a preview from the White House.
According to a senior administration official, the focus today is going to be the ceasefire deal. The president wants to see all hostages come home and for Hamas to be in a position where they are not able to govern again. According to the prime minister, he says, quote, the fact that this would be President Trump's first meeting with a foreign leader since his inauguration is telling. I think it's a testimony to the strength of the Israeli-American alliance. It's also a testimony to the strength of our personal friendship. In this meeting, we'll discuss important issues, critical issues facing Israel and our region. Now, this meeting comes as negotiations open this week for the second phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The next chapter is expected to include the return of all hostages in exchange for a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza.
A Texas state representative is pushing legislation that seeks to end DEI. Robert Thornton has more.
Texas State Representative Brian Harrison recently posted on social media that he exposed the state government's promotion and funding of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And not long after this, he says Governor Greg Abbott signed an executive order to end it in state agencies. The Texas legislature is in session, and Harrison has a plan to attack DEI. He made the comments on AFR's Jenna Ellis in the morning.
And so I'm going to file a bill in just a few hours that says to any of our public universities in the state of Texas, if you continue promoting DEI or liberal gender ideology, we are going to completely zero your budget from the taxpayers. If you want to promote liberalism, you do that with your own money, not on the backs of the overtaxed Texans who I'm proud to serve.
He also talked about why it took so long for an executive order like this to be issued since Abbott has been in office since 2015.
I think there was a lot of confusion when we did pass purportedly a ban on it in college 2 years ago, and I think a lot of people thought, maybe in good faith, that ban had stopped it. But for anybody who's been paying any attention, they know that's just demonstrably false.
He went on to say that DEI and liberal indoctrination is affecting several state colleges and universities and K-12 schools. He said hard-earned tax dollars are being spent on this, and he's had it and wants to stop taxpayer abuse. I'm Robert Thornton.
More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app on Muskie Pew.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, Bible teacher, author, and radio host Dr. Ray Pritchard shares how to engage the culture with biblical truth in a way that draws them to Christ.
If you can speak out with tenacious, winsome courage, you can actually win people to Christ, and you can attract people to your church who otherwise would just drive by and never give you the time of day.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Welcome to our new listeners in the Birmingham, Alabama area and the Tuscaloosa area. Those two new radio stations that we just recently purchased to join the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildman with Wesley Wildman, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning,
Roll
Steve.
Roll Tide.
You just divided our audience up there, Steve.
I know.
I have
Ray Pritchard with us. Good morning, Ray. Again.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing?
That was. At least you didn't say. What is that commercial when the guy says?
High tide.
High tide, guys. High tide, guys.
I didn't sing that one.
Oh yeah, it's a commercial about something about getting your name right. So, I don't know. I forget the product they're advertising there. That's not good. But
it's kind of counter to the.
The purpose.
Yeah.
High tide, guys.
Look it up.
But there are whether you're Roll Tide or War Eagle, we don't care. Just as long as you listen to American Family Radio.
That's right.
They're in the heart of Dixie, as they say, the great state of Alabama. All right, Ray. By the way, I didn't ask you last hour. I usually ask you. Give us a good word from the Bible this morning, if you would.
Well, just today, my wife and I have been listening through the Bible. It's what we do for our devotions.
Okay.
And Tim, we take about a year or so to go through the whole Bible, listening to it, and we happen to be at the end of the book of Revelation. And this morning, we read together these wonderful words from Revelation 21. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the former things have passed away. It's when we finish listening to this part, my wife says it almost sounds fantastical, and it does. It sounds like something out of this world, because we live in a world full of tears and death, mourning, crying, and pain. And as long as we are in this world, we're going to see death. We're going to weep. We're going to cry. There's going to be pain all around us, and we're going to experience our fair share of it. But here's the great truth. There is coming a day, friends, there's coming a day. There is coming a better day when death will be gone forever, when pain will be gone forever. I don't know if it's because of my own personal experience in the last year, but I feel like this cancer stuff is hitting so many people that Marlene and I know and are very close to. I'll be glad to finally get to a place where there's no more cancer doctors, and there's no more Alzheimer's, and there's no more multiple sclerosis, and there's no more dementia. There's none of that. It's all gone. And here's the great promise from God's Word. There's coming a day when the former things, the things that make us weep and keep us up late at night, it's going to be gone forever. And friends, I think, this last thing I want to say, Tim, I think we got heaven all wrong. We got this world all wrong. We think we're going from the land of the living to the land of the dying. That's completely backwards. By the grace of God, we are going from the land of the dying to the land of the living. So cheer up, saint of God. Fellow pilgrims, keep your eyes on the skies. Jesus Christ is coming back. And the things that make us weep today, I know weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning, and that's not far away.
Amen. Amen. May the Lord bless the reading and exposition of His Word there. The word Ray is sharing with us comes from the Holy Scriptures and from the book of Revelation. So you're already in the end of the book of Revelation. It's only February the 3rd.
Well, we started a year or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let's read your Bible through in a month.
I know some people do that.
I thought, man, you were blazing through.
We are blazing. No, we started like last January doing about 3 books a day, 3 chapters a day.
Ew.
And so
He
tomorrow
thought you may have cheated.
I know. We jumped from Genesis to Revelation, skipped everything in between. So after tomorrow, we're gonna hook back up in the book of Genesis and
start all over again, huh?
We started during the pandemic, and I think this is the 4th time now we've been all the way through the Bible, listening to it, and every time a different translation, and learn so much every time we do that.
Alice and I are doing that. We use Bible.is. I don't know.
Yes.
Is that the app you use?
We've been using YouVersion, but I've got right here on my phone, I've got Bible.is. It's because it has those dramatized.
Oh, we love it.
And the different voices.
It's not just some guy reading a boring script.
That's right.
The script's not boring, but you know what I'm saying.
Just to clarify there.
A stale reading. No, this says music and drama and the voice fluctuations, and it is great. We love it. It's Bible.is. They don't pay us anything to say that. I don't know who owns it, but
I second that notion. Folks, if you got Bible Gateway, that's great. If you got YouVersion, that's great. But go to the App Store and download Bible.is, Bible.is, because there are some versions, audio versions of the Bible that I find, Tim, only there. These dramatized versions only there and nowhere else.
Right. Yeah, we're in Malachi. Chapter 3.
Italian prophet.
All right, people, before you email me, I know it's Malachi. Okay. I'm just goofing off there.
Oh, wait, it was Malachi?
Well, one time we had a caller call in and say, yeah, Malachi, the book of Malachi. It said, must be Italian lady.
The Italian prophet, right?
That's funny. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, well, if you just look at it and you don't know what you're saying, right? It's like Malachi, the book of Malachi.
Right.
It's the last book in the Old Testament. It's called Malachi.
That's right.
Book of Malachi there. All right, you're listening to. By the way, I've asked this question before, Ray, but just curious. What's the time where the book where God quit speaking in the Old Testament and we pick up with the story of Jesus, or what's called the New Testament?
Well, the book of Malachi would be dated about 400 BC. And then the book of Matthew picks up the story of the life of Christ. And so sometimes you'll hear people talk about, quote, the 400 silent years. It doesn't mean nothing was happening, because a whole lot was happening in world history. But there's about 400 years where God was not directly speaking through prophets as he did in the Old Testament. So let's say Malachi, 400 BC, and the book of Matthew picks up the story with the birth of Christ 400 years later.
Okay, so Malachi is chronologically the last book before
of the Old Testament.
Right.
Okay.
Both chronologically and historically?
Yes, I think most scholars. Now, okay, there's some debate about that, because the books of the Old Testament aren't necessarily dated. But I think most conservative scholars would say Malachi was the last one written. And then there's, Wesley, this is what helps me to think about it. Between Malachi and the book of Matthew, there's about 400 years of the, quote, intertestamental period.
Yeah, that's what I learned. And this I don't know what age I discovered this, but I did discover a little later in my Christianity. I realized that the books were put together in a categorical sense, not in a start to finish sense, meaning the Bible as we have it traditionally right now.
It's not all in chronological order.
That's right. That's
well,
correct.
That's exactly right. I mean,
you may have some new Christians listening right now that didn't realize that, but Genesis, for example, Job, for example, was written during the time of Exodus or Genesis.
Okay, again, a debated question.
Yeah.
It's a debated, but Job clearly comes very, very
early.
Very, very early.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. All right. Did I formally introduce Steve? All right, go, Steve.
By the way, I got a request. Or we have a request from some of our donors.
Oh, yeah.
I don't sing unless I'm
paid.
I can assure you.
A really big pledge.
So two things I can
just
assure
get
you.
tired of all these requests. Tim, would you please sing so-and-so song?
It's not a request for singing. It is not a request for your economic foreign policy either.
All right, what's your
either
request
one.
for?
The request was I've had the opportunity to travel and meet some of our financial supporters and those that listen very closely to the radio program, and they asked if we could put a AFA branded Paisley shirt for sale on our website.
Yeah, I like
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I like that.
It's a request.
We can
putting it out there.
Yeah, well, we can think about how we can do that.
Yeah.
I want one.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Obviously.
You support that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's something to think about.
Paisley shirts, which Steve is known for. We'll have to do our own. Get our own logo on our Paisley shirts.
I like it.
All right, go, Steve.
All right. Do you remember a couple years ago in California, there's an undercover journalist, pro-lifer named David DeLayden.
Mm-hmm.
And he went undercover with video camera, and he got some Planned Parenthood people to talk about selling baby body parts, for research and everything, which is specifically against the law. And California just went after him, hook, line, and sinker. They charged him with 15 felonies, and he's been wrapped up in court for years, and he's saying it's good news. He has just they pled everything down to one minor charge, which he pled no contest for, and he is leaving California, or he will now no longer face any prison sentences, no fines. He basically has won the case, he says. So good news for David Leiden, and good news, I suppose, for the pro-life movement.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I remember his story. California picked on him because of his pro-life views. It wasn't anything he had done. All he did was report what the law violations were going on.
Right.
That's right.
Was it at Planned Parenthood clinics or whatever? They were selling body parts of aborted babies, right?
That they were.
And he could prove it, and then they went after him, they being the state of California.
For recording, I believe it was mostly for recording without knowledge.
Right.
Person didn't know.
By the way, Steve, did you see where Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is in Washington, D.C. today?
Yeah, I did. I saw that he was there. He'll be meeting with President Trump at some point. I don't know if it's today. Maybe it is. But yeah.
Yeah, he says the story says Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left for the U.S. on Sunday to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump. So I think that's today. I think that's going on today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm guessing Mike Huckabee would be a part of that.
That's a good point. I don't know if Governor Huckabee or now Ambassador Huckabee is in Israel, or if he's in Washington, or still in Arkansas where he lives. I don't know. But now we have placed a call in to Mike Huckabee. He's a friend of ours, and we asked him, now that you're a big shot, please don't forget us, and we still want to do interviews with you. And so he said yes, but he couldn't do it at the time. He was, in the middle of, does he have Senate hearings, Brent? Did he ever tell you he had Senate hearings or something, or what?
He was in the middle of waiting for confirmation.
Okay.
He said he is on call 24/7, and he said he did want to do the interview, and he would get back with us as soon as that's done.
He had to be confirmed, though.
That's correct.
That's what he said.
Yes, sir.
So once he's confirmed, which should be a formality, then he'll be able to do interviews with us. But he's got to go over to Israel and get in his office and get his staff. And I mean, he probably already has a staff, but he'll have to learn them. And you know what I'm saying? Get busy in his job as a U.S. ambassador to the state of Israel. But Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is in Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump today.
The Jerusalem Post is reporting that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to concede on the annexation of the West Bank in favor of advancing a normalization deal, an Abraham Accord deal with Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Which would be,
explain what you just said for our listeners, because that's really a big deal.
Yeah. So the West Bank is really on the east part of Jerusalem. It's the West Bank of the Jordan River, and it is where they are doing settlements. And apparently there was some talk of them just annexing that. And
you better talk about settlements. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go.
People may not know. Okay.
Tim.
All right. So you'll hear the expression when talking about Israel, the West Bank. As Steve said, means the West Bank of the Jordan River. There is a sections of Israel referred to as the West Bank as primarily the land that the Arabs live on. Okay? Arabs / Muslims / they're not all Arabs or Muslims. What's they call Palestinians. Okay, so separated from the Jews, who are 80% of the population of Israel. Well, the Israelis are building settlements, as they call them, on land that has typically been lived upon by the Arabs, and
Let me ask you
and
this.
there's some people upset about that because they say if there's ever a two-state solution, that Israel, the Jews, will have taken over sections of what would be a two-state solution, which I don't think is plausible at this point. Ray, have I basically defined that right?
No, you said it exactly right.
Okay.
And that last sentence is really important. You just said there, that's not plausible at this time. There's been a lot of talk about the two-state solution for the last 40 years, and at least today, given the problems in Gaza and with Hezbollah and so on, it seems further away to me now than it did 5 or 10 years ago.
Is the West Bank the same to Israel as the Gaza Strip is to Israel? I mean, it's like considered Palestinian territory?
Yes. Well, with respect to the Gaza Strip, Israel once governed that. Okay, we're talking about a small sliver. I don't know, 20 miles long, something like that, right? Maybe
really small. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful part of the earth. It's right on the Mediterranean Sea. It's really gorgeous if you look at it from a natural resource point of view. But then, but Israel pulled out. Remember that? Was it
right?
Israel said,
I want to say 2005, something like that.
Yes, they said, here, Palestinians, you can have
you can have it.
You can have it. Govern yourself, whatever. You just don't attack us, but you live your lives.
Is that the case in the West Bank? Do they govern themselves?
Yes and no. Israel gives some ability for the Palestinians, again, the Arabs, to govern themselves in the West Bank. But if they mess up, then Israel will go in with their own police and their own troops if necessary.
Well, apparently the plan was to annex, which means to seize that property and make it part of Israel. That's what I guess Benjamin Netanyahu was after.
What part? The West Bank?
The West Bank. They wouldn't have kicked the Arabs out, but they would have.
Well, they're building settlements because on land that the Palestinians would argue that's our land if we ever get a two-state solution.
Right.
Because Israel's getting an influx of people, of Jews immigrating from around the world, and they don't have anywhere to put them, so they got to build homes and property. Listen, it's a passionate, complex, historical issue that just divides people, but ultimately, the Jews control Israel, and they're going to do what they want to, basically, over there.
Paragraph 3 in this Jerusalem Post story says the Prime Minister, who will meet with President Trump on Tuesday, has previously stated his intent to expand the Abraham Accords and reach a normalization deal with Saudi Arabia. In return, the Saudis demand an end to the war in Gaza and a pathway to a Palestinian state, according to 2 diplomatic sources.
Well, I think, this is a shot in the dark, Ray, but I think if you really want to, Saudi Arabia's got enough land to give the Palestinians their own country.
Yep.
Oh, sure. Yes. They have tons of room to give the Palestinians all the land they want.
I think I think the world, maybe in 10, 20 years we'll be talking about this as a reality, although I doubt it, but the world would fund a city or cities to be built in Saudi Arabia for the Palestinians to live, because they are brothers of the Saudis and of the Jordanians and of the Egyptians. I mean, they're Arabs. And so if they want to live in peace, have their own piece of land, my goodness, there's so much land over there. But no, they want the land that the Jews are in, because not all the Palestinians feel this way, but a lot of it's fomented by hatred for the Jews. So they would say, well, we don't care if Saudi Arabia offers us land to build our own country or whatever. We want to kill all the Jews. That's basically and get our land back that we lived on prior to 1948. Go ahead, Ray.
Steve, let me ask you a question. You mentioned the Abraham Accords.
Yes.
That's what this is all about. That basically established peace between.
Yeah, that's a Trump initiative.
It is
from back in the first term.
It's something that I think is more than worthy of a Nobel Prize. Which
All right, listen, we want to save time for this Less serious topic that you got coming up. I don't know how much time we got left. 4 or 5 minutes.
We can do it now.
Okay. I need to set Steve over to you.
All right. Well, Donald Trump, President Trump, has been exerting his will not only on the politics of the world, but on the map of the world. Remember he named the Gulf of America now. The Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. Well, there's some comedian teams that think that maybe he's not done, and this is what they envision. Cut 11.
Good afternoon. After very strongly renaming the Gulf of Mexico as Gulf of America, we will be making further changes effective immediately. Europe will now be known as America Plaza East. The Panama Canal will be known as Trump America Canal of Trump. And of course, Turkey will now be known as Chicken.
Why are you renaming Turkey in particular?
Why are we doing it? Because we can. What are they going to do about it? Does Turkey want a beef over being called chicken? We'll call them beef. What else? Oh, also, we're going to name Hungary Thirsty. But don't worry, the Prime Minister there will do whatever I tell him.
What is behind this policy of changing everyone's name?
Because America will no longer allow people to tell us what to call them. It's like the pronouns. It's over. So what's that? Zelensky's on line 3? Put him on speaker. What else do you want? We're cutting off the aid immediately. Mr. Trump, we demand that you call our country Trump Crane. Trump Crane? Boy, I always thought of it more of a me crane than a Ukraine, but tell me more. Greater Trump Crane. Greatest Trump Crane. Deal! And we will also rename Donbass Donald Bass and retake from Russia. Deal! Deal! I love it. Sally, tell Pete Hegseth to give these Trump Cranians whatever they want.
Who was that? You know who that was?
It's a team that does stuff with puppets, and I have to get the name. I'll have to bring
that was a great Trump.
Yeah.
Got to give him credit. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Great Trump and very Babylonian B-ish.
Yeah,
where you're like, okay,
I'm gonna
you could actually.
What do you say? He's gonna rename Turkey Chicken?
And if you got beef with it, and instead of meat crane,
Europe's gonna be Trump Plaza East.
Trump.
And instead of you catch that instead of Ukraine meat crane because Trump likes himself a little bit.
Well, he does rename a lot of things after himself. The buildings, Trump plazas everywhere. So
that's true.
Oh my word, that was funny.
Yeah, I'm glad
all
we
in
for
good,
that.
All in good fun.
That's right.
All in good fun.
All right. Well, listen. Thanks for listening to our program today, everybody. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Tim.
Wesley, appreciate your contributions.
You're welcome.
Steve.
My pleasure.
And Brent Creeley, our producer, Chris Woodward, who was on last hour, Sandy and Robert for joining us. And most of all, we thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep listening to AFR, and we shall see you back tomorrow at 10:05 a.m. Central Time.